Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now recording. I can send it out, no problem at all.
Yeah.
Very okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. So where are we? Let's go back to the share. So David, are you happy so far?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, brilliant. Okay. So let's just go back to this. So training plans, because I'm on a new computer, normally I've got a picture of you down the side. So if you just tell me if you can see the training plans.
Yeah.
Right, great. Okay. So this stuff you should know, but what I'm looking at the level 3 level, I'm looking at, and we'll talk about this in detail in a minute. I'm looking for 3 levels from you. I'm looking for the overarching strategic high level plan. So you've got a breast cancer team, for example. What are the main key points that you're looking to achieve during the year? That's the first one. The strategic level about what Pink Lionesses is all about and where you're going with it in the next 12-month period. As Mayo mentioned, obviously within that you've got event preparation. So we've got a race event or local events, and I don't need to spend too much time on that, but I appreciate that's part of it. That's a second level. And the third level, which you may or may not cover already, is what I call core business. Now, when I talk about core business, I'm talking about things like safety procedures, safety drills, swimming tests, capsize drills, all the things that you need to be doing on a rotational basis through the course of the year. What people tend to focus on when we talk about training plans is just event preparation. But yes, we've got an event next week. I'm going to Serbia next week, so I've been training for that for the last few months, and then it'll be the next race event. But then over and above that, I've got the strategic high-level plan, and I've got the core business. So even though I'm training for a 500-meter race or a 200-meter race in Serbia, I've still got to keep the boat stable. I've got to look after new paddlers, which is part of core business as well. I've got to make sure they come in, they get the right training as well. And it's not just about just preparing for race after race after race. There's other stuff going on as well, safety being one key one. Now, just you should know this, periodization of training. So just any of you, just talk me through training cycles. So what's a macro? So what's your understanding of a macro cycle, a mesocycle, and a microcycle? It's an American term. It's not particularly helpful, but how do you understand that?
Macro is, like for the big picture.
Okay.
Meso and the micro is, to get down, for the little details, more specific.
Okay. So give me some examples. Yeah, yes, but so when you say macro, so give me an example of something that would lead up in order to do a macro cycle, leading up to what? What sort of thing we talk?
Macro session. Let's say that we're working, more for let's say, how you say it, more, techniques and more, איך אומרים, סיבולת לב ריאה?
Endurance.
More endurance, more techniques.
Would that be macro?
The micro is you're working, specific and about what you to achieve. Like let's say that if we are preparing for session in racing, and the racing is for 500 meters, so we're working on specific on this 500. Inside the 500,
Right, gotcha.
something like this.
So for example, your macro might be you're working up to a national championships or a big event or a challenge event, a high point of the year, whatever. There could be a series of macro cycles, but that's the big event you're planning for, or series of events. Your mesocycles, as you say, will be broken down into smaller components, which are the stepping stones towards achieving the macro objective. And your micro, as you say, it might be improvement on aspects of technique. It might be aspects of endurance, whatever it's going to be. So once again, we're talking about stepping stones, building blocks, building up to a big picture, and just identifying it down into manageable chunks. So roughly speaking, how long could a macro cycle be?
Macro?
Yeah.
The macro, something like 5 weeks.
Okay.
1 month, 5 weeks, something like this.
Okay, so if it could be 5 weeks, it could be 6 months, it could be a year.
Could be a year, could be 2 years.
Okay, it could well be. If for example, you're starting a new team, like pick lionesses when it first, the first year's macro cycle might just be to compete in a challenge, a challenge event, but it depends. But if you just work on the 5-week cycle, then say, for example, your macro cycle is 5 weeks, and say you're building up for an event, a challenge, a race maybe, or whatever it's going to be. So how would you break down the mesocycle? So say, for example, your macro is going to be, you're going to take part in a 500-meter challenge event with other teams, or you're coming to Cyprus. Okay, let's call it that. You're coming to Cyprus for the international event in October, and you're 2 months out, 5 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. Mesocycle and microcycle. If you're racing over 500 meters or 200 reps, going to be, how would you split that down? What sort of things would you put into those particular meso and micro periods?
You want me? Can I answer? Can I
Yes.
answer this?
Everyone.
Okay. No, because Mayo has started. So, I think maybe in the beginning, not maybe, but we're trying to set a target of time. Okay, we're watching other videos, we're watching other competitions, and we're trying to mark at what are the best time that we can achieve. Okay, and then we do some steps towards this time. Okay, let's say we want to go to, I don't know, for 500 meters, let's say if we're talking about the lioness, let's say 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so 3 minutes is our goal, and that's our goal to be at the end of this 8 weeks. Okay, and on this time, okay, we also try to understand what will be the effort, the whole competition period. Okay, so it's going to be 2 days, 3 days, how many sessions in a day? So we have to prepare for this. Okay, it's not just one, race.
Okay, hold it there. So you've decided that Pink Lionesses, they're going to achieve 500, but just deal with one, so they can do one 500-meter competition.
Okay.
In 2 months' time, 8 weeks' time, they're going to come to Cyprus, and they're going to take part in a breast cancer competition with 3 other breast cancer teams, and you're going to target 3 minutes. You want them to do as well as possible, and you've checked out the other teams. There's a team from England, there's a team from Ireland, and they're doing about 3:05, 3:10. So that's a realistic time. So you want them to achieve the best they can. It's specific, it's measurable, achievable. You're not suddenly saying to them they're going to do 2 minutes, so they can achieve it. So there's your target. Now, Davide, how are you going to break that down in that 2-month period into your meso and micro cycles? What sort of things are you going to consider? You're on mute, my friend.
That's it. Okay.
Gotcha.
First of all, I have to do 2 parts. One is endurance, okay, because 500 meters is not a sprint race, but you need to work on your power also, okay. And I want to divide the 500 meters to different parts, okay. So first, I want to work on my endurance, okay. As I get closer to the competition, I'm going to start to go down more and more towards the 500-meter distance. Okay, I'm going to start, let's say, with distances like 1K or 2Ks to work on my endurance. Inside that, I will put in also power workouts. Okay, like a start workout and 100 meters and 200 meters. But the sessions will be long. My recess will be short, and as I get closer to the competition, I'll get closer to the 500 meters, and I'll try to put a couple of 500 meters in one day, in one competition, in one session. As long as and shortly I'll be going into one session of 500 meters and try to get back to my 3-minute time.
Brilliant. One question on that. So you mentioned you're going to race over 500 meters. Why are you training for longer distances? What's the rationale behind that?
Because when you work on a longer distance, okay, it will be easier for you to hold for the shorter distance. if I'll take only 500 meters and I work only on 500 meters, it's too narrow. Okay, the team will be too narrow. I need to work on 1K and slowly to build up my endurance and slowly go into the 500-meter distance.
Absolutely. I would actually, I quite agree. I'll go longer than that because, as you all know, the foundation of sprint training is tempo. You've got to lay the foundation. So, I mean, at the moment, I'm training for a 500-meter race next week. For the last few weeks, I've been going out doing 6K, 8K tempo, 75% level 3 heart rate, build up, and then I'll go and do sprints, and I'll break my sprints, my 500s down into 100-meter segments, and I measure those. So you're going long and you're going short, which is what Davide said. Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
Mayo, what do you think?
Tim, I would like to say something. I want to start from another point. Okay, our team, it's about in the Pink Liners in the Kinneret, we are about 80 paddlers. Okay, when you make your plan for the whole year, and when you make your plan, if you want to take part of the competition of 500 meters or 2,500 meters, okay, I need first of all to choose the right paddlers for the right distance.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, people on the ladies can paddle very, very fast, but they cannot hold for 500. They can hold it for 250. And I'm working total different. As David said, okay, when I'm working with the ladies on 500 meters, first of all, it's aerobic, it's power, it's less the start. And for example, 2,500 meters, the start is very important. The quickness, okay? So I need to think which ladies I'm taking to the 500 meters, which ladies I'm taking to the 250. And then I'm start working on them, okay?
Okay.
But first of all, I need to choose the right paddlers to the right distance.
Okay, fine. So this is all about microcycles and mesocycles. So that selection process, how would you do that? What sort of, that's a micro, isn't it? So what would you do there?
I'm checking the ladies. I'm making some checks. You know, we are trying to paddle for 500. I can see who can hold the 500 meters, who cannot, who is quick paddle, who is not. I make my, some tests for the ladies, and then I choose them.
Okay.
And I know, look, in our team, I know them in advance, but let's say it's in a new team, I will make, more tests to see. I need to find the condition of the ladies. Some of them cannot paddle for a long distance.
Yeah.
For many, many issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've gone into maybe too much detail. I'm just thinking broadly. So I don't think necessarily just about Pink Lionesses now. I'm just talking about how we make the cycle.
Okay. So you need to make some tests to check the ladies. You need to. Some of them can be very good for 250. Some can be very good in 500. Maybe for the 250, you don't need the heavy guys. Maybe you need a powerful and very fast ladies. And for the 500, you need more aerobic, more powerful. So.
Okay. Mayo, you sort of shook your head, or maybe you agreed. What would you add to that? Because the point is, there's many ways of achieving this. Some are better than others. Some work better than others. So Mayo, what would you do different or the same in terms of breaking this? You know, I want to get to my 3 minutes in 8 minutes, in 8 weeks. That's my aim. So I'm consistently doing a 500 meters, and I'm around about 3 minutes more often than not. So what sort of steps would you consider?
Let's say that I have something about 2 months before the competition, so I will do something like about let's say 4 weeks, I will do the general training. The other 2 weeks, I will do the specific training. And the other 2 weeks, I will do the typer. Typer is exactly about what we need to do in the race. Let's say if it's 500, so it will be exactly for the 500 all the time. Before this, on the specific, it will be longer, but it will be, you know, with small sprint in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, you know, to
Right.
play with some things between the 500, you know, the starts, the finish, between the starts and the finish.
Right, so we've got some different concepts there. We're pretty much talking the same language, whether we're talking about tempo training or the conditioning training out to 1,000 meters that David's talking about, or the selection process that Ruvik's talking about. There's some sort of measurement building up that foundation from which we can make a selection. Now, just taking on Mayo's point, and I'll ask Asaf to take that on. What Mayo is talking about, I would call a skeleton. Now, you may not use that. A skeleton, I'm sure you've heard it. A skeleton is not a full-bodied race. So I was doing this today. I was out in a kayak. I was measuring. I did my tempo training. Then I went out and I did 6 times 500s. But I measured every 100 meters. And I'm doing different things in those different 5 meters. So I'm going full on. Then I'm going long and strong, about 75%. Then I'm going full on, whatever. So Asaf, tell me a bit about your understanding of how you'd break the event distance down into chunks.
Okay. So I just want to add something from something we've started before. I didn't finish it. I've said that, okay, I'm going to mark down, let's say 3 minutes as a target. Okay. And we're building up towards that, but 3 minutes, it's also a state of mind. Okay. We're trying to achieve something. And also the mental is very important. And you know who are your competitors are, and you know, you're trying to build up who you are trying to compete with. So it's also mental. Now I'm going to break down what you said. One good exercise that I like to do before race is trying to break down the start and the rest. Okay, let's say I break it to maybe four sections, but the start, I work with the GPS watch, and I want to know how fast and how long the time takes me to get to the fastest point. Okay, so let's say it takes me 16 minutes, 16 seconds to get to, I don't know, 14 kilometers per hour. Okay, I know. Okay, so I take these 16 seconds, I take them off, and now I'll go longer. I'll go to the fastest point that I can get. Now I'm going to start 500 from there. Okay, that's one of the tricks that I'm doing. One of the games is, can we hold this speed on 500 by not using the start, without the start? Let's say how long it takes us. Okay, so I'm start playing with the let's say with the components, but without the start. The start is one thing. I want to go the fastest I go, and now I'm going to keep on going for 500 meters, which means it's going to be like about maybe 600 meters. Okay.
So let me hold you there for a minute.
Yeah.
So the profile of the start.
Yeah.
There's the start.
Yeah.
Do you want to go there?
Yeah. Exactly.
There,
exactly.
or there? So you want to?
I'm playing with it. I'm playing with it. It depends, because I want to go. Okay, I tell you how I see the 500. Okay, the 500, I'll no matter what, I'll have a drop down when I go from anaerobic to aerobic. I want to pin down this breakdown. Okay, people have to get their oxygen. They have to breathe right. I want to put them in the moment where the boat, just the speed drops because you don't have enough oxygen, because you didn't breathe right, because you didn't plan it right. So I want to I always play, when I go to 500, I play with the gap, or let's say the movement between the anaerobic and the aerobic part. Okay, this is a very strategic point that you have to be prepared. I have to go from this one to another. So I can break it. I do the start, and then I can go a little bit up, and then I go, usually I go straight, and I can go down, I can go up, depends.
Okay. So on your start sequence, are you targeting a number of strokes or a boat speed?
Boat speed, usually
Right.
boat speed. I do it by GPS.
Okay, fine.
Okay, but I don't have the GPS. I don't have it on the competition.
Right.
Okay, so I have to know by the GPS how fast I'm going. Then I can count. How many strokes we can do. Okay,
Right,
but
so-
usually I work on the GPS.
Okay. So say, for example, just for argument's sake, you do a 20-stroke start, whatever.
Okay.
So what can you do with that 20-stroke start? With the 20-stroke, you can get a maximum speed
Mhm.
and then transition into a more aerobic or top-end aerobic. What else can you measure on that start sequence apart from boat speed?
Well, I can usually the first strokes won't be the same. We'll go for longer strokes and then medium strokes, and we go to very fast strokes. It depends how we plan it, okay? But it doesn't end, the start doesn't end. It isn't ending when after 20 strokes. It ends when I see the speed. Okay, when it's okay. And usually I don't count in the beginning the strokes because I'm speaking, so it's easy for me to see the GPS than to count.
Okay. So let me ask Mayo, what would be if you decide, if you just said, right, we're going to do a start with 20 strokes,
Okay.
and we're going to aim to get to, we can do it in 16 seconds or whatever it's going to be, and we're going to try to target 14 kph or whatever. What else could you measure in that? What else could you measure in that start sequence apart from boat speed?
Wow. When I'm thinking about 500, you know, I'm trying to you know, I'm thinking about you know, to get the speed of the boat for the, let's say, for the 20-25 strokes, and then to try to keep it, you know, for the most of the rest of the let's say in 20 stroke, 30 stroke, we will get 100 meters, 100, something like this. No, less, something like 50, between 50 to 100
Right.
meters.
So you're talking about distance.
Distance, yeah, the distance, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Mhm.
Right.
So
So
let's say-
realistically, you may not make 100 meters, you'll probably do something in the
No, no.
region of 50, 60, 70.
Yeah, something
point
about,
is-
yeah, between 20 to 25 stroke, it will be 50 to 60 meters. Yeah, something like this.
Yeah, but you could measure, if you say, right, you've got 20 strokes and we're trying to get this boat as fast as possible
Fast
and
as possible.
far as possible.
And then to keep it, you know, to keep
Right.
it for the, let's say, if the start it's something like 50, 60 meters, so we have to keep the boat the same fast, you know, for the rest of the, let's say, 300 meters.
Yeah.
And then we have to take it up, you know, for the finish.
Okay. Just hold it there. Just go back to the start.
Okay.
So if you're working on the start, you're trying to target a speed and get as far as possible in 20 strokes. That's also a measurement of paddling efficiency and power output. Yeah. So my point is, you could measure that as one of your metrics, but would that be a microcycle or a mesocycle? Well, what would it be?
Micro.
Okay, so it's once again, it's one component, and you decide where that fits in. You see what I mean? So what we're doing is how we divide it up. Ruvik, what do you think?
When I'm making the 20 stroke in the start, I can measure some things. First of all, the distance that I'm achieve in the 20 strokes. Then I can check for how long I can keep on rowing the same speed. Yeah, the same speed. Okay, before we are going down, because somewhere we will go down because of the anaerobic. Then I'm walking, I can check the power. If we are speed and power, okay, the distance of the 21st, and then how long I can continue with it. And from a training to training, I can achieve more distance with this speed.
Okay.
So it's make our ability much better. Okay.
I mean,
Then-
where you do that in the cycle is up to you. I would do it fairly early because that would then inform me about their resilience, and that would inform other training that I'd need to put in. Because if they're hitting 14 kph and they're doing 60 meters in 20 strokes, but then they're dying off after 250 meters.
Exactly. Yeah.
To still keep that, I need to focus on that, but make sure that is there rather than there. So by doing it early, then I can focus on, like I say, your various microcycles are not standalone. They all work together. And sometimes you think you've got the target and you've got to go back and rework it. So they continue on and on. Okay. So just coming back to the cycles side of things, what other, we talked a bit about skeletons and breaking the race down. So we've done the start, we've talked about that. We know where we're going with the start. And we all know how important that is, because if you get your nose ahead, it's easier to stay ahead than to be playing catch up when you're behind. So let's park the start for a minute. But how would you break down the body of the race? So say your start's going to be the first 60, 70 meters. So the other 430 meters, how would you break that down, and what sort of cycles would you look at? So David, what do you think? You're back on mute. You got it. Gotcha.
Now, I think we have two more parts for the 500 meters. Okay, we have a planning part. When we want to save energy, keep the boat in the same pace, okay? But let the boat run as smooth on the water as it can, from paddle to paddle, from each time the paddle goes into the water. Because we know when each time the paddle goes into the water, it also stops the boat a bit. So I want the planning to be as smooth as I can. I don't want to have a lot of strokes, okay? It also depends on the team, but let's say take the Elayanese, that I can't say that it's not like the Sparta paddlers that have a lot of power and a lot of energy, okay? We have to save the energy as much as we can, okay? And so it depends also on the team, how long can you do it? I would say something like if the start was about 60 meters, 60 to 70 meters, then I would say about 300 meters at least to do planning, okay? To go as smooth on the water, to keep the boat as fast as we can, okay? But we have to save power. We have to save power, okay? Towards the let's say 100 meters towards the end, that we want to go up to the finish cycle.
Okay, let me hold you there. So now let's deal with this. So we're talking about boat glide. We're talking about efficiency and effectiveness of paddle strokes. Now, obviously, as we know, if you did one big stroke and it carried you 500 meters, that's better than doing 500 strokes.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, and in the same way that if you're driving your car at 80 kph in second gear, you'd be wheel spinning as opposed to 80 kph in fourth gear. So you're going for the fourth gear option that gives you the most effective, efficient, and you've got the stroke, you get the glide, and then you come in with another stroke rather than just ramping it up. So we're talking about stroke rate. So another microcycle or a mesocycle, okay, fine. Well worth spending some time on that. And I don't have myself, I don't have a 500 meter rate or a 200 meter rate. I work out what is the optimum for the crew.
Exactly. You have to, each team is different.
Absolutely. I mean, Mayo, what do you think about that? Do you have a rate for 500, a rate for 200, or how do you decide what is the right rate? Yeah, we're not about the start. So we've done the start. So the body.
Distance, I think that of course the distance is different, and the training for 500 and 200 it's a bit different. But I think to make the race for 3 parts, starts, the middle and the finish will be at the 500 meters and the 200 meters. Also in the 200 meters, I will do the 50 starts, 100 the middle race pace, and then the other 50 is finish.
Okay.
So let's say in the 500, it will be 60, 70 meters. Then the 350, it will be race pace, and then another 100 for the finish.
Okay. So how do you, I mean, there's lots of ways of doing this, lots of ideas, and every coach thinks their idea is the best, and that's fine. That's great. But
Yeah.
when you say race pace, so that how do you determine what is the rate? Because this is another microcycle. So how do you determine for a given crew what is the optimum race pace?
It depends the targets that I want to achieve in the finish.
Okay. So give me some of your considerations.
Wow, it's different. I cannot tell you because I didn't, train for a race, in a Dragon Boat. So I don't know exactly what's the times for Dragon Boat for 500. So,
okay,
it's difficult for me to tell you now. I know that the race pace in 500 meters, I don't know, 3 minutes. I don't know. I don't know yet.
okay. What's in terms of the not the running time, but the stroke rate, the cadence? Just
it's not the pedals. In the start, they're supposed to be faster, and then in the race pace, they should take the rate, the stroke rate a bit down,
Okay,
and
so
keep the boat the speed of the boat.
One more question. So in that race pace, so in this particular format, you've got different formats. You've got your start, your middle, your end. Okay. The middle bit, the race, the body of the race.
Okay.
What is the fastest? That's a general question. So how do you determine the fastest rate and the slowest rate? How do you determine generally? Ruvik.
No, I didn't understand exactly.
You're mute. Right. So in the body of the race.
Okay.
Rather than just saying 60 strokes a minute, or 70 strokes a minute, or 50 strokes a minute, how do you decide what is the fastest rate that the pink lionesses can go, and what is the slowest rate? So what are you looking at when you're thinking about measuring that optimum rate?
I am trying to keep the speed of the boat. It can be, and it depends in the group of the rowers, because there's some teams they need to keep the boat speed in 70 stroke per minute.
Okay.
Some teams they can keep the same speed boat in 55 stroke per minute.
Okay, so what we're looking at in terms of the lowest rate is if they're getting a paddle stroke in and the boat is gliding. If it's becoming too heavy, then that's too slow. So they're looking at a paddle stroke and a glide, and before the speed starts dropping off, they're coming in with another paddle stroke. So that's just, broadly speaking, that's your lowest rate. What's your highest rate?
The highest rate? 70, 80 stroke per minute.
Okay, so Ruvik, how do you determine whether it's 70 or 80 or 140?
How do I know the speed? You mean?
אתה על mute.
Ruvik,
your question is, how do I know how many stroke the pedals per minute?
no, how do you work out what is the highest rate they can go?
I'm checking this on the training, to see if they can keep it, if all the group, all the crew can keep it, for 70 or 80, or if it's too fast for them and the boat is not gliding. So I have to take it a little bit down and to pay attention for this.
Okay.
Because
Ruvik,
some of the crew can be faster than the others. So some of them cannot pedals together, for let's say 80 stroke pedals per minute.
Okay, hang on there. Ruvik,
Look,
Ruvik, what do you think?
What I'm doing with my team, that I measure any 100 meters, for example, okay? I'm making the start, let's say 20 stroke, okay? And then for example, if we make the start and we finish the first 100, 30 seconds, okay? It's about normal.
Right.
Okay, 30, 35 seconds.
Okay.
Then I'm starting checking how many strokes at the second 100 meters. And the same speed, what David said, we are start flying, okay?
Right.
I call it we start flying. After we take off,
Right.
we start flying, okay? And I want to measure the next 100 meters, how many strokes for what time. We
Okay.
did the second 100 meters, and then the third, and then the fourth. And what we want to improve ourselves, I want to improve ourselves all the time to see if we can keep our speed and the same strokes. For example,
Okay.
if we make 40 strokes in 100 meters, for example, okay, this is something about, okay. So
Right, hang on there. I was looking at a more simple thing. If to determine the slowest rate, it's the point at which the boat stops gliding. You do a stroke and it dips. You do a stroke and it dips. That's your slowest rate. Your highest rate is the rate at which they can paddle effectively and keep connected. When they start going onto their arms, rather than connecting through the hip, through the leg, that's too fast. That's all I was looking for. Just those two. Very, very simple. You'll go into more detail. So very quick and easy, rather than saying the stroke rate has got to be 70, it's got to be 80, it's got to be 100, it's got to be 60. A simple measure. And once you identify that they can only paddle effectively at 70 strokes a minute, then what that informs another microcycle about how you can develop, and you can expand that option. Because if you think about it, if you can paddle slow and effectively, this will inform your end sequence, because your end sequence, typically, if you're following your particular plan, would be a higher rate. If you're going to a higher rate, you want to keep that effective. So you don't just want to do a higher rate and just wheel spin. So the higher rate has got to be matched to a higher boat speed. So if you've determined that their top rate is 70 strokes a minute or whatever it's going to be, then you'll be targeting the fast start, the hard start, the 14 kph or whatever it's going to be consistently for 350 meters, whatever. And then when they go to the finish sequence, be it 50 meters, 100 meters, 80 meters, whatever, you're targeting a specific cadence, because you know they can maintain that. So what I'm saying is, once you've done these early measures, you don't have to do this. That will inform how you populate your microcycles.
Tim, I understood what you said about the lower pace, okay? But I didn't understand what you're saying about the high pace. How do you know this is the highest it can go?
Well, if you think of principles of paddling, you've got to measure it anyway. But what we say to people when we teach paddling is you're using the whole body, you're engaging the lat, you're pushing down, you're derotating, pushing down with the top arm, derotating with the core, driving with the leg. Yep. What people would tend to do is when they speed up the cadence, they just dislocate everything below the chest and they're just paddling on their arms. So the rate is going up, but the
speed is down. Yeah.
Correct. It either stays the same or it drops. So if you train at that higher rate for 100 meters, that will give you the power and the speed, rather than, if you're doing 14 kph in your car in fourth gear, and then for the last 100 meters, you're doing 14 or 13 kph in second gear. That's all. So these early measures will then inform your various cycles. You don't have to do that, but it's just one way of doing it. Then,
so you're saying that the highest speed is the highest speed we can go, but still keep the right technique on.
Connected, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
זה-
Yes.
דוד, איך אומרים סבולת מהירות באנגלית? זה מה שנקרא סבולת מהירות.
Speed endurance, the speed endurance,
Right.
Rubik. This is speed endurance. I mean, you can hold on to this speed and the right technique. This is a speed endurance.
But this is, I would call that, it's the same thing. I would call that the tempo training. That's David
Okay.
early.
Yeah, we are
thousands-
talking the same thing, yeah.
It's the same thing. It's a different term. But as we all know, the foundation of effective sprinting is, I call it tempo training, speed endurance. Yeah, you've got to build the base before you sort of take it up. That's it. Okay. So we're on the same page. Let me just go back to the share a minute. So, okay, we've dealt with the micro, meso, and macro cycles. Other terminology you may come across is outcome goals, performance goals, and process goals. And pretty much, if you've come across this terminology, it's the same thing. The outcome goal would be to achieve 500 meters in 3 minutes. Yeah. The performance goal would be the measurements of that, how you measure the start, how you improve the start, how you improve the body. And you may break that down into 50-meter segments, 100-meter segments, or what I call a skeleton. And a skeleton, as you know, is not a full-bodied race. So what David was saying was you analyze each component. So typically, a typical Dragon Boat team would do a good start, and then round about the 300-meter, 250-meter mark, they might drop down a little bit, and then they recover for the finish. So if you notice that consistently, then you target that period so they end up staying consistent. You might even put another race start in at 250 meters. You might come up with a tactic which prevents that dip, because you know that dip in the middle is going to lose the race for them. Or it may mean another boat is moving up, which means they lose their advantage and it becomes a little bit panicky, or whatever it's going to be. But by those measurements, as David was saying, they inform the components and how you intelligently prepare for the race. And it's true whether you're talking about the Pink Lionesses, the Israel national team, or anything. It's the intensity is different. Now, let me just ask you this terminology, no pain, no gain, because we're talking about very detailed concepts here. So what do you think about the idea of training people, no pain, no gain?
We talked about it already in one of your lessons, Tim.
Yeah. I mean, this is how I trained as a marathon paddler, as a marathon distance runner, as a paratrooper. Absolute. I mean, I did that, and we all do that. Absolute rubbish. It's all about pain with a purpose. If you tell, as we said before, if you tell people what you want them to do, explain it in the right detail, they will be more likely to buy into it and probably even enjoy it as well. So it's at the right level of explanation for people. So fine. Mayo, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
You don't have to. You might say no.
No.
I've just found over the years that you can work people extremely hard if you tell them what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it really is so important. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's a team sport. Okay, so there's our outcome. We talk about outcome goal, performance goals, and process goals. And the process goals are really the individual building blocks. They're like the micro cycles, like the focus on the start, how far you can go down the race line, how fast you can achieve, how efficient you can be, the highest rate you can go, staying connected, those sort of things. So we talk about outcome goals or cycles. It's pretty much the same sort of thing, whatever terminology particularly works.
And but Tim, sometimes we need to be very careful, you know, between how long we're going with the fastest speed, or how long we are going with the fastest speed without it will cost you at the to the end of the race.
Of course, and that's where Asaf's point about
sometimes we want to keep it fast, and then they collapse. Okay, and the boat is stopped. So we need to find the exactly point, how to get to the high speed and to keep it all the way.
In training, you'll have your own terminology. I use the term meat. I talk about skeletons and I talk about meat. And meat is MEAT: measure, evaluate, assess, and test. And I got that from the military: measure, evaluate, assess, test, everything. Now I do that for every team I train.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
intensity level is different for a national team as opposed to a club team, but exactly what you're saying: measure, evaluate, assess, test. So I talk about skeletons and putting the meat on the bones, but that's just the way I do it. But like I say, if you're not measuring things, then what's the point? Yeah, because then you know if you're achieving
Well,
your
there
goals.
is a point. The measuring it when you are going to compete, but in
No.
you know,
Oh, no, I'm agreeing exactly. If it's all very well having goals, cycles,
right.
aims. If you're not measuring them, you don't know if you're achieving your goals, and you'll never know.
Of course.
And it surprises me how many teams don't measure. And I'm thinking, well, you may not measure everything, but it's a great incentive for people, great motivation. If you're moving towards 3 minutes and you know they're hitting 2 minutes or 3 minutes 5 consistently after a month. You see what I mean? It's a great, because it's going to give people a reason to work a little bit harder. But it's amazing how many teams don't do that. But okay. Mayo, do you agree? Any thoughts?
I'm agree. Yeah.
You don't have to agree with anything. It's only sharing. And I actually like it when people don't agree, actually. So
I just, Tim, I want to add something in. Is it possible? Okay. We're really, okay, we're speaking about the 500 and the competition and everything, but paddling is not everything. I have to say that, because we're focusing about how to move on the boat, but we're trying to move on a crew. Okay, and there are other ways to move on a crew. Okay, you can run now, you can swim, you can do other aspects of doing it together, and bringing some of the spirit of the crew together to in a different angle. Okay, right. This is very important. So for me, let's say there are a lot of training out of the boat. Let's call it out of the boat training. Okay, means people have to run, people have to go to the gym, people have to work outside of the boat. Okay, so we're not just working on power transmission or how the boat perform. We're speaking about crew, and there are other aspects when you train to 500 meters.
Right. You've obviously read my script.
No, I didn't.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. We were talking about early on. We spoke about the strategic level. We spoke about the event planning and the core business. Okay.
Okay.
So my next point. This is like complementary training. So the event planning, we talked about the cycles and just dealt with a notional 500 meters, just to go through that point. And what am I going to ask you to do is that, I mean, preparing for that competition, that's the level 2 skill, but you're already level 2. So we don't need that from you. What we need from you is the higher level. So that includes the strategic overview. So what Asaf is telling me is, it's not just about racing. And I know racing is that much, dragon boating is that much. And how we prepare people to race effectively is not just in the boat. That's obviously a big part of it. But in terms of building up people's team spirit, self-worth, mental resilience, physical resilience, we're going to be looking at other complementary training as well. Exactly these things. So when you're putting your training plan together, I'm not looking for on week 1 do this, on week 2 do this. I'm looking at the overview. How are we, if we're going to say speed and strength endurance is important for Pink Lionesses, the next question is, what's the implication and obligations for that? How am I going to achieve that? Well, I can achieve it by paddling. I can achieve it by running. I can achieve it by swimming. I can achieve it by walking in the Go Line Heights, whatever it's going to be. So think about how we're going to train people, which complements the paddling. So that's part of the strategic overview. And when we talk about the core business side of things, that also may include some complementary training. It includes safety training. It includes how we induct new paddlers and all those sort of things as well. Yeah. So just coming back to the training plans, how we've dealt with the periodization side of things, what do you think would be your strategic high level aims or plans for Pink Lionesses over the next year? One would be to build strength endurance using a variety of methods that Asaf has mentioned. What would be another one?
I think one of the first things is to keep the health up.
Okay. I mean, bearing in mind, we're talking about a breast cancer team, and we're talking about people who are survivors of breast cancer, and it may go into remission and all sort of things. So we're talking about appropriate health precautions as well. Okay. And that would inform the sort of training we do. Okay. So that's one strategic overview, which will always be the case with Pink Lionesses. Another one, just general ideas.
I think we need to improve our techniques. And first of all, we need to improve our techniques.
Okay.
The paddling techniques, to work very hard on it, and that's what we are doing now, by the way. Okay. Techniques, and inside techniques, I'm bringing them to the aerobic, the power, the speed, with the techniques. For me, it's the most important. If the whole boat are not going in the same techniques, in the right techniques that I think that suit to my team, nothing good is great happening. I mean, so my title, first the techniques, then the aerobic, then the speed, the power, okay, the start, and then I can start working specific to the 500, to the 250, whatever.
Okay, I mean, you'll have your own methodology, your own routine, but I talk about 4 T's: timing, teamwork, technique, power transmission. And that is true for international squads or basic novices.
Yes.
Cancer teams. Timing, teamwork, technique, that will win the race. When I go to Serbia next week, the team that does those most effectively.
What do you mean by timing?
Timing, phasing, balance. Everybody essentially doing the same thing in the same way at the same time. So I break timing down into timing and phasing. So timing together, I can be in the same time. I can be a fast off the back, slow off the back. So it's got to be in phase, because as you know, when you're talking about racing, you can get some boat drive out of the movement of the body.
No, I thought about the timing, that you mean something different.
Oh, no. Timing as in paddling. Right.
Okay.
But so like I say, those 4 fundamental components, and you could say your strategic level would be to focus on those.
Yeah.
And you might exactly. Okay. So Mayo, another high level plan, another high level objective for Pink Lionesses this year.
For the Pink Lioness, I think the most important, first of all, they come to paddles to keep the physical health. Right. And then I think it's to keep them also the mental health, they meeting all together, they have all the same problem. It's, the joy before the training. And then after, to keep them to come to row, to make them to enjoy of rowing and paddling, to make it, first of all, fun before the competition.
Right. So let's park competition. Because one of the teams I coach in the UK is called Bourne Water Dragons. They're an all-cancer team. They don't compete. They don't compete at all. They do lots of challenges. They do charity events, but they don't compete. The most important thing for them is they get together as a group and have fun. And actually, the paddling is secondary. And it's not, they paddle and they paddle well, but it's not the main thing.
Yes, of course.
The vehicle to get them through the cancer side of things. So one of the most important things you're doing is actually getting people together, creating that climate that people come, enjoy the fraternity. And
And
as
to
you're,
have fun. Yes,
Dragon,
exactly.
yeah, well, the history of breast cancer teams is not about racing, it's about fraternity and getting together and sort of improving health-wise.
Exactly.
Right. So that's well, exactly. And so how would you, as a coach, so you're a dragon boat coach, a paddling coach, how would you create that sort of situation? What sort of things would you consider? You're just talking about making it a fun session. And it's really important. It's fundamentally important. How would you do that? I'd say that's
How do I do? Are you asking how do I do the session to make the session fun?
yeah.
You know, when we first meeting, you know, we just chatting a little bit, and then we do the warm up together. We're taking, preparing the boat and everything. We're going down to the water. In the Yarkon River, we are first of all, before we start, we do the warm up on the boat. We're going down to almost when we go out to the sea. So they're getting there, they're having fun for going out a little bit to the sea, to smell the sea, to see the sea, and then the rest, and then we're going in. You know, we paddling, which sometimes we're having, I'm doing to them some sprints between the paddling, breaking. We're talking about what is good, what is not good, what is need to get better, and what is, you know, things.
Right. So you're talking about what is the spirit of the team?
What is?
What is the spirit? What is how you create that team spirit that is unique to Pink Lionesses? Yeah.
Yeah, to give them, you know, to have fun and paddle and to have fun.
Okay, because I know Ruvik does the same thing. So how do you do that in Kinneret? How do you create that culture, that atmosphere?
That's, I must tell you, Tim, that this is something that is the most difficult to build the team spirit and to build the mental and psychology, to work on the psychology and mental things that these ladies sometimes, you know, the week after all the treatments and things like that, that they could make it. And they could make it, but only together. Okay? So I'm trying to mix between them, to put the weakness paddlers in the front, for example, and the power one in the back side. Okay, things like that. And we are talking that we can mix the teams. Sometimes we are going 2 boats or 3 boats. Last time we did 3 boats together. Okay, the same thing exactly. Right. Okay, mix things. And we go together. It was wonderful because they can see each other, how they paddling, okay? And trying to improve themselves.
רוביק, תסביר לו שזה גם לא פשוט עם 10 פולניות על הסירה.
Tim, what Mayo said, it's not so easy to make it with 10 Polak ladies in the team, in the boat. It's something in Israel, so, you know, when you say the Polak, Polak, yeah, women's, it's something different. But to create the spirit of the team, it's the most important. It's something that Asaf talked about it in advance, okay? And then when you can create that you can support each other, that you can, you know, trust each other in the boat, you can do everything.
Absolutely, and it's often overlooked. The building of trust and confidence. Once you have people's trust, it's very easy to lose, but it requires you, as you know, to be, you know, you can be motivated, you can be enthusiastic, but you need more than that. You need to be inventive, and you're limited by your imagination. But that, once you've got the interest, you've got to maintain it, then everything else becomes possible. And you'll be able to push people very hard that they can deal with if they've bought into the fact that, you know, you're there for them, you're there to look after them, you're not going to ask them to do something they cannot do, and they trust you in doing it. And that I'd say that is absolutely number 1 in your strategic plan. Okay, so those sort of considerations. I'm going to send this out in an email as well. So have a think about your strategic plans or objectives for the year. We've dealt with event planning. I know you know how to do that, but now we're going to talk about what I call this core business. So the things that you need to do in order to keep people safe on the water, how you deal with new paddlers, how you induct them. How do you deal with that? So when you're not planning for an event, so how do you get new paddlers in the boat? How do you teach people boat safety? And what other things would you think are your core business? Asaf, what do you think?
Well, as I say always, for me, the core business is being safe. Okay, everybody has to go back home safely. They have to know that. They have to know when they come that they will go out safely. And I had a little chat with the paddlers on the last session. I said, who cannot swim in this boat? Just for you to understand something. Who cannot swim? 3 paddlers raise their hand, say, I cannot swim. I said, okay, do you understand that when you cannot swim and you step on the boat, you sit on the boat, you have to completely trust on all of us. There's no other way that you have gone on this boat without this 100% trust on me and the rest. So this is not happening only on the boat when they trust. They trust you on land. They trust you when they're on the way to the session. They have to trust you. And you have to, so being trustful and being, it's a complete thing. They have to know that they trust you, and you have to stand or to pass all the little tests so they'll know they'll trust you. They have to trust you, and it's part of safety.
Okay. So in terms of practical water safety,
yeah,
what sort of things do you do and how do you do it?
So I speak before that. In the warm-up, I speak about safety. In the boat, I speak about safety. They have to know that's in the top level. I consider that every second, before, inside the session, and after the session. They have to know that, okay? So when they know that, they can trust me. Or they can trust the boat, they can trust the session, they can trust the team. It's part of the team work, the team spirit is they trust who leads the sessions, who leads the group. They have to trust that. And that's very, very important. For me, gaining trust is something very important. Because when I know they trust me, I can, okay, let's say that the higher level is everything has to be progressive, okay? You have to progress from one session to another, from 1 month to another. Although you don't have a race ahead or something, you have to progress in something. But in order for them to trust, to make a progress, they have to trust you.
Right.
So they trust you in safety, they'll trust you in getting them in a progress.
Okay. Ruvik, how do you teach safety?
Oh, I'm teaching safety?
Yeah.
From the beginning, I'm doing it by myself or with a bit help. I explain them all the safety rules, how to get in the boat, how to get out of the boat, how to sit first in the middle, then to move. Okay? I'm talking with them about if something happened to the boat, what we are doing, stopping in the boat, you know, paddles on the water. If we flip over, I'm telling them first, I got you recommended that I'm talking to them about the, you know, the
Body.
not only the iron numbers, but only,
okay.
you know, to support each other with the 2 people together. Okay, I'm telling them you are support the other, and I'm doing it before we start the training. Okay, but every second training, it's exactly what Asaf said. We keep on telling them how to get in, how to get,
right.
how to help them, what's going on, everything.
We team. We also we can do some little drills. We can do it by game. We can do it in other ways. There are a lot of ways to approach safety, but the main thing is keep it in the conversation, keep it in the session. We can do like men overboard. Now it's winter, I mean, it's summertime, it's extremely hot. We always go into the water. We let someone go, and we exercise the men overboard. We exercise a lot of things, but it can be with little games. It could be when you speak about it. It can be even when you talk about trust. And I'm telling you that this is very important to understand. 3 girls cannot swim on the boat. It's something that you have to consider. Maybe to take one to another boat. If you go to 3 boats, maybe divide it to 3 different boats, because you have to think about that. They cannot be, if you're only 10 in the boat and you have 3 that cannot swim, this is something you have to consider.
Okay. So exactly that. I teach all my water safety, I teach it as a game. Yeah, because if you just said to your crew, right, next Sunday, I know we've had this conversation, next Sunday we're doing a capsize. Half your crew won't turn up. If you say to them, next Sunday, well, I'm doing this in Limassol, next Sunday we're having a water safety fun session. And it's about capsize prevention. And it's not a play on words. I teach them how to stop a boat capsizing. And at the end of the session, we have to capsize the boat because that's part of the routine. But I'm trying to capsize, and they've got such an effective brace stroke, they stop me doing it. So the moral of the story is they control the boat does not control them. And if they can effectively brace the boat and hold the boat, it won't capsize. Because as we said previously, the best way to deal with a capsize is don't have one.
Yeah, prevent it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Asaf is exactly right. If you approach it and you present it as a fun session, bit by bit, it's a very complex session, and I've probably done, in the last 5 years, I may have done 30 or 40 capsizes in training with different clubs. Everyone is different because you've put 20 people in the water, mixed them up, and you get all sorts of responses. But that, I'd say we'll talk more about that when we do it live. We'll demonstrate it, and you'll see what I mean, and we'll share some ideas around that. But make it enjoyable. But like I say, how are we going to train safety? How often are we going to do it? If you do safety every session, it gets fairly boring. But make it interesting, introduce it. Don't do it all at the same time. But, if you know nothing about safety now, and over the next 6 months, you do maybe 1 session a month, has some safety element, in 6 months' time, you'll know 600% more than you knew today. So it's just building up. And like we're saying, in the same way about paddling technique, you're laying the foundations, and over time, you're building the wall and building the wall. And the teams that do that and have a procedure to do that never have a capsize. There's always the teams that never do it. And they say to me, first time we've done that. It says, well, it's the first time you've been found out. That's all. So, introduce it. So that when we talk about the training plan, it's not, on day 1, we're going to do this, on day 41. How are we going to introduce that? And the last thing before we leave training plans is how we introduce new paddlers. Now, I know what they do. We mentioned it last week. Ilana in Kinneret, they have a different boat. But when you think about it, if you're training kayak, I was out yesterday with the kayak. I was in an OC1. I was with the kayakers. And a typical kayak club, they'd have Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D. And they're all roughly the same standard. So the Group A's train together, the Group B's, the Group C's, the Group D's. In a dragon boat, we've got everybody from possibly international standard to complete novices. So as coaches, we have to work out that balance, how we achieve all of that. And one of the ways we do that is by having one-to-one training plans and different plans. And we'll talk about that on the next session. But just talk me through what happens on the Yarkon, how you introduce new paddlers. What sort of procedure have you got there?
In the Yarkon, we just, we mix them. We mix them with the ladies that paddlers for a few months. We are not. If there is new paddlers, we explain them how to paddler and everything. And let's say that if we are going out more than 1 boat, let's say 2, 3 boats, and let's say that I'm the main coach of the dragon boat in the Yarkon, so I take the new one in my boat and I put them. I let them sit in the behind, very close to me. and I'm explaining them what they need to fix and what to notice for, but we mix them with everyone. We don't make boats only for the new paddlers. And
Okay, if that works.
I'm asking the new paddlers to come earlier first.
Right.
I'm taking them. I'm teaching them the techniques. I'm giving them to work with one of the ladies that she's a good she had a good techniques and she knows everything. That we are talking to them how to use the life jacket, for example. Very simple, yeah. You put it on, but they need to they need to understand how we use it. Okay, how to get in the boat, get out of the boat. Paddles on the water, you need to tell them all the commandments, okay, before we start the practice.
I mean, it's an interesting point you mentioned. I'm not going to deal with this today, but you talk about a life jacket, but you don't use life jackets. You use buoyancy aids, and it's not a play on words. A life jacket is different. That's designed.
I know.
You see what I mean? But the point is, and it's to Asaf's point, we put non-swimmers in buoyancy aids, but buoyancy aids aren't for non-swimmers. Buoyancy aids are for people who can swim. So my last question on that is, with your non-swimmers, what extra precautions do you have in relation to your non-swimmers?
Who are you asking? You asking me?
Sorry, Asaf. So just.
So we always have who their teammates, okay, who will save them, who will be in touch to them. Okay, so actually, when I have non-swimmers, they have two on one non-swimmer. Okay, wow. So that's the most important. I say, okay, no, so you move on to the next bench, and the other two, one behind you and one beside you, will keep over you. Okay, wow. That's really important. That's how I deal with it.
So this is exactly the same concept that I talk about, always moving towards safety. So in this case, you've got your buddy system, but when you have non-swimmers, you have a buddy 3. Yeah. I mean, like I say, you're not going to reduce the risk to nothing, apart from saying don't come paddling. So what can you introduce? It's just risk assessment, isn't it? What can you introduce that has the minimum problem, but the maximum effect?
Yep. Yeah,
exactly. Okay.
Yeah. Going towards safety is something that I took from one of our chats, and it's really it's changed my my way of thinking, and I really appreciate you for this note because it's really important. Okay. And if you'll stay after this session, I'll share something with you that happened. It has nothing to do with this. Yeah.
Time's getting on, so I'm just going to talk about one more thing. We're going to talk more about analysis of paddling on the next session. But I just want to ask you, last point for tonight, how do you give feedback? Now, feedback is a fundamentally important part of how you coach. Well, how do you do it? So tell me how, so Ruvik, how do you feed back to people?
The feedback to the ladies, to the paddlers?
Yeah.
Well, it can be in some ways. It can be in the boat, you know, that talking to them, please do things like this, not the other way, okay? Or I can speak with them after the training.
Okay.
Take them by the side and talk to them what was good, what was not good. I can speak with them for the whole group.
Okay.
For example, I can see something that happening in the group. Okay, so I'm speaking for the whole group.
Okay.
If I see some paddlers that doing something different, I can give him the feedback. You know, try to change this, try to change the other.
Let me switch. Thank you. Let me switch to Mayo. How do you give feedback?
I give feedback in the boat. You know, exactly like I'm. Just like I'm telling them what they need to fix, so I'm at the same time I'm giving them feedback.
How do you do it? I know what you do. How do you do it? Is there a method? Is there a structure to the way you do it? Because it's quite important.
If there is instruction, no, I'm just giving them a feedback. Yeah, you're getting better, just like this. Yeah, if I'm telling them, working with
That's
your
not
body.
feedback.
So
Okay, David, how do you give feedback?
First, I'll start with something positive about
Hey, brilliant.
the way it's going. Okay?
Okay.
Doesn't matter. I'll find something also if it looks like, sorry on the word, like shit. I would say something that he won't shut his ears off. Because if you start with something negative, he won't listen to you anymore.
Yes,
Finish
correct.
the lesson. Okay, so I'm going to start with something that's very positive about the way he sits, the way he holds the paddle, the way, I don't know. I'll find something. And then I'll give him one thing to fix. I won't start fixing the whole way or everything at once. I'll give him one thing I want him to put notice on
Okay.
at this paddle session. And
So-
each time, and I can talk to him afterwards on the shore and tell him you fix that and you fix this. Very good. Next time we'll continue working.
Okay, so if I'm a really rubbish paddler and you've seen 10 bad points, how many would you deal with?
1, 2.
Okay, yeah, fine. Okay, Asaf, how do you give feedback?
Well, actually, in every session, I start in the beginning. I step on the boat, I sit in the boat, and I ask permission to use somebody's mistake in the group.
Right.
I asked permission for that because each one takes it differently. So when you share someone's mistake in the group, people don't take it, let's say, equally. So I ask permission, and they say it's okay. So I'm gonna use it, and I'm taking one mistake. Not every time I say the name, but I take one mistake. I demonstrate it to everyone. I say, okay, that's how it's done. I've seen that done. Let's say like they paddle this way and they take the inside arm, they take it down, okay, and then they do this, okay. I say, okay, so hold on. There's something in the boat that goes this way. It has to be this way, okay. I show that. I don't relate to names. Sometimes I do it as a joke because I know who I'm dealing with. I know I can do it. I know she'll handle it. And so this is one way. Okay, and then I ask usually after the session, when we go off the boat, I say, please excuse me for sharing this, for using this. I'm asking their permission and they apologize for this. Okay, it's because I have to respect people's, it's personal. I have to respect it. And that's one way of doing it. If I see that something is completely wrong, I'll change the seats and I'll say, hey, follow the next one, follow the one in front of you. I just for one person, sit here, follow someone in front of you.
Okay.
It's impossible to fix everything. Like you said, there are 10 different points. I cannot teach 10 different points. Okay. Watch someone in front of you.
Okay, let me pick up on David's point there, because it's a really important point. If you see me paddling and you see 10 great points about my paddling and one bad point, I will forget the 10 points. I'll always remember the bad point. That's just human nature. Mm-hmm. People also say that even a broken clock is right twice a day. Mm-hmm. So you'll always be able to find something that's worth retaining because they're building on that. You're not going to destroy them. So feedback is a gift. I say feedback is the gift that makes you great. But you've got to be receptive. If you're going to give feedback, you have to be an active listener as well. You've got to listen to what people are telling you. And the first thing I say, as David says, is I ask people. I use a term, there's different ways of doing it. I use the formula, if you like, GBH. I tell them what is good. I tell them what is going to can be better, and then I tell them how they're going to do it. I don't just tell them you're a crap paddler, give up. What is good, what can be better, and how. So I tell them what we're fault checking and tell them how they're going to do it. It might be technical drills, it might be micro drills, it might be seat position, could be all sorts of ways of doing that, and we'll deal with that later on. But picking up on the good points, or as David says, finding something that's good to anchor it to. Because what is good, they want to build on. because nobody is that bad. Just nobody is that bad. But a good point is if they've got, I think human beings can remember plus or minus 7 things. But if you give them 20 bad points, they probably won't come back. 2 or 3, build them up in time. That's that. I talk about, let me just show you something else just to finish off this. So here's my feedback. So firstly, feedback is a gift. The way I do it, what is good, what can be better and how. When you're giving feedback, you've got to be transmitting and receiving. So you've got to be listening as well as talking. And when during the session do you give the feedback? Well, I prefer to give it during the session because then they can use part of the session. So it's not going to be all the time. I would do a piece and then I'd stop and maybe give some feedback generally for the boat or to individuals and then give them the opportunity to improve it. You could do it at the end, of course, then you're waiting for the next session. So either is good. I say be responsive, and the SPON is supportive, positive, objective, and neutral. So you're never blaming people. Asaf mentions about sort of giving generalized feedback, even people know. I just use that SPON. Praise and encourage. Don't, as they say, pull your punches, because don't tell somebody they're good when they're not good. But if you're building up the culture of trust and confidence, it's being able to give people feedback and then accepting it in the way you're doing it. Obviously not giving the same person feedback every session. So you've got to share it around. It's like a bouquet of flowers. You've got to share it around the boat, but be objective. Don't tell people, don't lie to people. Don't people tell they're great when they're not. But also, if they're not great, don't tell them they're great. That's just an easy way of doing it. I'm not sure you would do that. And the last point is, it's good to link it to your performance or outcome goals. Yep. And that's really all I want to say about feedback. And I've held your attention for an hour and a half, and that's all I said I'd do. So I'm going to leave that there. But before, I'll have a quick chat with Asaf afterwards. Just to round off there, any concluding points on this? Just on the session planning, I'm going to send you a brief anyway, or on feedback. Any concluding comments from you, Asaf?
I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's really important to see different approaches, and I think it's really great. There are so many ways of looking at every second on the boat, and I think I've said that maybe in one of the other sessions. There's so much information in one boat. It's like 2 football teams. It's 22 people in the boat. It's amazing amount of information. And you have to choose where to focus, and different angles is good for me to maybe change some focuses along the session.
I think you've picked up on the point which is fundamental to level 3. Level 1, level 2 is about information transfer and assimilation. Level 3 is really about sharing ideas, because I may have been coaching this for that many years, but if you're not aware that you're talking to, if you think about it here, we've probably got 30 or 40 or maybe more years, 50, 60 years of coaching experience. If we're not tapping into that and sharing ideas, I mean, the principle is, they say, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yep.
So the more we share, the better we all become.
Yeah.
Paddlers. So that can only be good.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that in teams that I'm working with, we're doing a lot of work outside of the boat. And it's you can see it after that on the boat. You can see that what we've done on shore is holding on to the group and to the crew.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. David, any concluding comments?
Yeah, we have to do it not on supper time, because it has to
Exactly. Okay.
There's a lot of information. There's a lot of methodic stuff that you talk about. That also the language from English, your English to real English and to Hebrew, we have to find a way to adjust.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of words that we have to translate from English what you're saying to English that we can work on. Okay, like not professional words, but basic, like one word you're saying, we have to go and translate it into a sentence that we'll know how to translate it into Hebrew and then take it up on the water.
That's why I'm very reliant upon you. That's why it's a more of a sharing thing than a, but yeah, okay, thank you for that. Okay. Mayo, smiling there. Any concluding comments, my friend?
For me, it's I like it very much. You know, until now, I'm working with the Pink Lioness on the Akon River only for the last a few years, and you know, I didn't training them, you know, for competition or something. And now, when it's getting to be, you know, more serious, and I'm getting a lot of information, it's nice. I like it, and
Good, great game. I mean, it's complex, but we've tried to make it enjoyable as well. And that's
yes,
it.
of course, I'm enjoying this. Yes, of course.
Great if they have a good time, but we've got to have a good time.
I'll tell you, Tim, for me, it's very interesting, first of all, you know, to learn from you and to learn from others. It's very important. When you think that you are a perfect coach, you start go backward, not forward. So, you know, hear others, to see what others doing, learning all the time, how to improve yourself. That's the most important for me.
Okay. I think you're absolutely right. The day you think you're a perfect coach is the day you retire.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Let's leave it there. Thank you very much. Asaf, I'll hang on anyway if you want to have a chat, but thank you very much for your time. It's now 10 o'clock in the evening, so have a good evening and thank you, and I'll talk to you soon. I'll send out the video as well. No worries.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Tim,
Have a good night.
Thank you, my friend. See you later.
Tim,
Yeah.
tell me something. Do we know what time, what date is the race already, the competition?
Say that again, sorry.
The competition in Cyprus. Do we know the date?
Oh, yes, it's Saturday. So the race event is on Saturday, but what
What the program that they
that's all right.
the program they show on the Dragon Boat Cyprus Federation is the 10th.
Oh, right. Well, I spoke to Momir tonight.
Okay.
He's the chair of the CYDBF, and I said to him, I'm talking to Israel in about an hour's time. You've got on the website that the 9th and 10th is the international event and the corporate event. Which day is which? And what he said to me was the race event's on Saturday and the corporate event's on the Sunday.
Okay, so we still have to figure out if and on what dates and everything is supposed to work.
Yes.
Okay, because there's no reason for us to be there on the 9th because you won't be able to do anything with us.
Yes.
The 9th is the competition, right?
Yeah.
So you probably will be working.
What I've said to yes and no. What I've said to Orit, and this is really for, like I said to you earlier, Orit said to me, how many days do you need? And what I said was, well, how many people are coming? So when you know, and what I've said is, my wife arrives on the 9th. So any time between the 28th of September and the 9th of October, if you tell me you're coming to Cyprus, I'm available to you.
Okay, so it's even better if we come before the competition, but we need to come with a team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's not. I mean, I would love to say to you, yes, do this, but that's beyond my. I'm just saying I'm available if required.
I'm saying you won't. If we come, the four of us, you don't have anything to do with us, right?
Right. Well, I would plan. My plan would be, depending on what Orit says to me, I would plan to assess the level 3s on the Friday. The 8th.
Okay.
Now, whether you wanted to come for any other, I mean, so I would do the 1 or 2 days on basic helm, and probably 1 day on level 1, level 2, because they're the same people, and then 1 day on level 3. That's provisionally what I'm talking about. But I'm pretty certain about. I think I'll only need 1 day for the level 3s. And what I
Okay,
need.
so
is Yeah.
So if we'll be there from, let's say we're not going to compete, we're going to be there from Thursday afternoon, then we can do it on Friday.
Yep.
And then Saturday we can either go home or whatever.
Yeah. Yes. That would be that. When that's what I've said to Orit, but she's organising that. So yes. But what I said to you is there's no point in you being in Cyprus. Well, it's like me coming to Israel. There's no point in me coming to Israel unless there's something for me to do. So the same situation applies to you. There's no point in you sitting around paddling around for 3 days when we only need you for 1 day. Exactly that. And I hear you absolutely clear.
Very good. Thanks. Good night, team.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Asaf, you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying that you know, we spoke about this working towards safety.
Yeah.
And then I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I went with my kids to the Kinneret, to the Sea of Galilee. So my younger kid, he's 7 years old. He stayed on the kayak. We've been like 3 person on a kayak. I was there. Another let's say maybe 10 years old boy, and he's not mine, and my younger kid, he's 7. The 3 of us were on the kayak. So we went back to the shore. I went off the kayak, and the both of them stayed in the kayak. Said, "You want to stay on the kayak? Do you want to go around?" They said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go around." But the older kid decided he doesn't want. He jumped off the kayak, left my kid in the water, and he jumped and swam away with another friend. And my kid stayed 7 years old, although he's been in the kayak for many times before that, he got panicked because he was alone on the kayak. It wasn't far away. So I thought it was okay, but actually when he stepped off the kayak, I saw that it wasn't okay at all. But what he did, when he understood that he's on alone on the kayak, he paddled. Okay, he paddled to the closest point that he could step off the kayak, which wasn't what I would have done. If I was there, I would have gone to where I launched, which is further away. So he stepped off the kayak, dropped the paddle, left the kayak, and walked away. And he was very upset and everything. So I hugged him and spoke with him and said, "Hey, you taught me something very important today, because I would have never gone that way, because he just left the kayak and everything, but he was safe." So he done.
You make a really important point. A lot of my son's now 23. He's been the Great Britain Helm. He's a level 3 coach. I learned much of what I teach in terms of coaching philosophy. I learned from bringing up my son, and especially the way people learn. If you think about it, most adults, when they get to a certain level, they're worried about failure. They're worried about their movement. Their minds are polluted by the consequence of failures by other people. If you look at the way children learn, they learn unconditionally, and they're very logical. And I sometimes do lots of, in normal years, I do lots of youth sessions. And every now and again, we do a session and we tell them the basic minimum to do in a dragon boat, and they still go out and they pretty much work it out. Paddling is a fairly natural thing to do.
Yep.
You don't have to overcoach all the time. And we think, so as coaches, very often we think we need to lay it on, and sometimes we don't. And it's good just to think about the way you're doing it all the time. But there's so much you can learn from kids about the way they learn by failing. And that failure
Exactly, but as I told him, even in the nighttime before he went to sleep, we spoke about it again. I said, "Hey, you taught me something very important today, because I've never done that. Not because I could have, rowed to the other side easily, although I'm alone, but he didn't think that way. He said, which way is the shortest way to safety? Stepped off the kayak, adios, done deal. That's all he done. And it was amazing for me to see that. So I went away, I went over, took the kayak, rowed to where we launched, which is really close by. And I saw him all the time. I saw he was doing okay. He was a little bit upset, but he was okay. And you know, it's sometimes these little things make a point to set down, to set in the mind.
Yeah.
And just by watching this and seeing this is closer than there, that's all I need to see to understand that now he's safe, he got to the safest point in a shorter distance. That's all I need to see just to make it to set in my mind. So thank you for that. And sharing this because I think for me, it was a good lesson. Although he was upset, but I think he grew up with this. And there are all the time we go a lot to the Sea of Galilee, a lot. We cruise around with boats, with sailboats and everything. And they listen and they know, I tell you, they hear everything I say. Although they do the other way around and everything, but they hear it. So
my father's been dead 30 years. And I always talk about, when I talk about coaching, I always talk about you can't fake it. You'll come out, you'll be talking about things which are fundamentally important to you. And I will be quoting my father. Things he would say, he would say things like, know your job, do your job, get it right first time. Things are just they just come out because they are lessons, these sort of lessons that I've learned that are absolutely imprinted and are actually a fundamental part of me. And it's actually a privilege to do this because I enjoy teaching people, but I really enjoy teaching people like you who know something about, because you're giving something and you're getting something back, and the interaction. And that's why I love doing level 3s, because you're having conversations. You say, well, I've done that. Well, no, that would never work. Well, why wouldn't that work for you? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, fine. And then you go and try it and it does work. So you're moving your knowledge all the time. It's great.
All the time. Yeah. Sharing is so important. And I learned a lot from, at the moment, I work with the Lioness, but I'm involved in other groups also, in other crews also. And for me, it's the best experience. It's not just being in one group and set this, just going from one group to another. I have to do a shift in my state of mind. This is not a competitive. These are competitives. These are very vulnerable, and you have to be very, 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 very easy with them. There are different ways of approaching every group and everyone. And for me, that's what keeps me alive, keeps everything sharp, because you have to rethink and to be in a different state of mind. And
I think it's very true, because I'm often saying, you may have said this already. If the paddlers, I know you call them rowers, but I call them paddlers. If the paddlers aren't getting the message, change the message.
Yeah.
And I know too many coaches who just talk blah, 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 blah. It's the culture of the coach. If you don't just understand what I'm saying, there must be something wrong with you. Now, I'm not talking about changing it so fundamentally that you're paddling differently, but you've got to think about a different way of conveying the same message. And that, to me, is the joy and the benefit of teaching kids. Because once I had a session with kids, and it must be something I said to them. When I asked them to paddle forwards, they paddled backwards. And when I asked them to paddle backwards, they paddled forwards. And I was thinking, what am I saying to them? And when you think about it, in order to paddle forwards, you come forwards and move the paddle backwards.
Yeah.
And to paddle backwards, you come backwards and move forwards. And it must have been something I said on that day that I conveyed the wrong message. And like I say, you have to sometimes, not every session, you have to rethink and reinvent now. So now I talk about pulling and pushing. It gets the same message across, but it's a different way of conveying the same information. And to me, that's the privilege of proper coaching, because you're always evaluating what you're saying and how you're putting it across. I mean, not every session, but sometimes it's good to review and check yourself, because if you say the same thing year after year, it just gets boring. So it keeps it interesting for me as well.
Yeah. I see it. I see coaching as just, you have to be a person. If you love coaching, you have to be a person that loves to improve. Improve. If you have to be improved as a person. Okay, like I just bought a new surfboard. If you seen the one with the, it has a hydrofoil. The hydrofoil, the one I just bought a new one a few months ago. So I've been windsurfing since I'm maybe 11. Okay, and that's, I'm a good windsurfer. I'm very I'm really, I've been doing this for a long time, and now getting this one more improvement inside what I do best. I can do loops, forward loop, backward loop. I can do everything on a surfboard, on a windsurfing board. But now it's a different thing, and it's a different balance. I have to be more accurate. I have to study something. I want to be better. I have to be it's in my spirit to get improvement. And if it's burning inside to get things improved, then coaching is part of you.
I think you're right. I think all the best coaches I know are also students.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I think for me, and I hear a lot of people say this, to be the best coach you can be, you have to be in contact with the learning experience. If you don't, and you become the remote coach, just do what I say, and then you're not a coach anymore. You're just you're just an icon.
Yeah, that's true. And one last thing, just in Hebrew, rowing and paddling, it's the same word.
Oh,
okay. For us, it's so. Don't get frustrated when we say paddling. Paddling and rowing is the same sport. It's the same action. It's the same verb. Okay, it's the same.
It's funny. The reason it's funny, it doesn't. I mean, because in English, rowing and paddling are absolutely different. And it's a bit of a standing joke that people come to dragon boat teams and they talk about rowing. They'll say it's not rowing. It's paddling.
It's not rowing. Yeah.
It's just rowing. It's just rowing. Yeah.
Did you read the book about the there's a book I want to share with you, a book that I'm reading now in Hebrew. There's The Boys in the Boat.
The Boys in the Boat, yeah.
Did you read that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm reading it now.
My crews bought it for me after a competition. Yeah.
Okay.
I talk about that all the time.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. Okay. So I'm reading it now. I got it in my iPad. I'm reading it every now and then. I'm reading a little bit.
I mean, next week I've got a team. They're the remnants of the British team. They're not the British team because it's not an international competition in Serbia. And I'm always saying to them, it's not about Queen and country. It's about the boys and the girls in the boat. I've been saying that for years.
Okay.
That's why people perform. They don't perform because they're wearing the Union Jack or whatever. They don't perform because they like the Queen or the country. They perform because it's you and me in the boat.
Yeah.
That is such a fundamental thing. So when it came out, probably 2015, 2016, I think, and one of my paddlers, one of my strokes, bought it for me. He says, I think you'll like this. And it's a great book. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Tim, I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Yeah, hopefully you'll make it to Israel one day. Yeah, you'll see when we're paddling.
I hope so. Again, but yeah, okay. Have a good evening. Thank you, my friend.
You too. Bye. See you. Thank you.